Admit it, the early 2000s was a strange time. They gave us the first gen Prius, the Pontiac Aztek, and the Cayenne became Porsche's first SUV. But after 2 decades, these cars are showing their age. They haven't aged gracefully, kind of like your boy. But there are some cars out there that found a way around the aging process better than Pamela Anderson. And that's what we're talking about on today's Idealist, with these 11 insane cars that are at least 15 years old that still look showroom fresh today. Now, let's get right into it with a car that wouldn't look out of place in a sci-fi movie. Despite hitting the roads back in 1999, the Pagani Zonda. Yes, that is right, ladies and gentlemen. The ultimate Italian hypercar is now 23 freaking years old, but it's aged far better than me and will still turn more heads than anything else on the road today. From those high-mounted side mirrors to that iconic quad exhaust, there is really nothing else quite like it. Speaking of exhausts, it sounds just as good as it looks. Thanks to that Mercedes-sourced V12 engine. The Italians really know how to make a beautiful car. And that's not limited to supercars. You can still get that timeless Italian style at a fraction of the cost with cars like the Alfa Romeo Brera. Now, you may have never heard of it because, well, they only made about 20,000 of them. And unfortunately, none of them made it to the good old USA. But the Brera might just be one of the most beautiful sports cars ever made. And sure, it was just as unreliable as every other Alfa ever made, but at least when it broke down, you'd have plenty of time to admire it. The Alfa would be more at home in an art gallery than it would on the racetrack. But if you want a sports car that still looks modern and is actually nice to drive, then take a look at Honda's S2000. This little sports car showed that Honda knew how to have fun, let their hair down a little bit, and just go out there and let the night take it to where it takes it. And with right wheel drive and that sweet VTEC motor, it's now over 20 years old, and it's still one of the most fun cars that you can have at any price point. And it also looks really cool. It certainly holds up a lot better in the style department than, you know, say an NB Miata, in my opinion. Now, seriously, let's talk about a company that knows a thing or two about cool factor, Aston Martin. And no car has aged better than the DB9. And most Astons, they're not designed to set lap records or break quarter-mile records. They're more about driving across continents in style and looking cool when you arrive at your destination. The DB9 is the definition of what that is together. It fits that goal perfectly. And in 2004, it was an absolute stunner. And today, it's still one of the most beautiful cars ever built. The designers just got everything right with this car. And I bet it'll still look just as good in 10, 20, even 30 years into the future. Plus, it's Bond's car.
The name's Bond. James Bond.
And they made 150 special edition DB9 GTs, the Bond edition, except without some of Bond's gadgets, of course, that sold new for $165,000 a piece. And Aston Martin didn't just get lucky with the DB9 because its little brother, the Vantage, has also aged better than fine wine. The 2005 Vantage tried to compete directly with the 911, and while it couldn't match the Germans on pure driving enjoyment, I'd say they surpassed them on beauty and cool factor. You know, curb appeal. I mean, just look at this thing. It looks better than most cars on sale today, and it is over 17 years old. Now, crossing over the Atlantic, you can find a car that's even older and aged just as well, and that's built right here in the US of A. Yes, Dodge Viper hit the roads first in 1991, when 2 pre-production models were pace cars for the Indianapolis 500. It then officially went on sale in 1992 as the RT10, the rest, as they say, is history. And it doesn't matter which one you go for. I mean, the OG with the amazing 8-liter V10, or the upgraded 2nd gen, which Trav owns, or even the 3rd gen with the 8.3 liter, they all look awesome. And with that massive hood and cabin way out back towards the rear wheels, they stand out compared to anything else on the road. And sticking with 90s supercars, let's talk about the wildcat that is the Jaguar XJ220. And just like the Viper, this Jag is now 30 years old. Man, that makes me feel old. The XJ220 must have looked like a spaceship in the early 90s. and still holds up well next to today's supercars. And yes, we may have been promised a V12 and four-wheel drive, but the 3.5 V6 that we got in the production version was still enough to make it the fastest road car in 1992. Combine that with that super sleek look, and you have a truly iconic supercar. And another car that's a little less super, but just as iconic is the Mini Cooper. It's not all about supercars. I mean, sometimes you get a cheap everyday car that you might actually want to be seen in, and Minis make some of the best looking little cars around. The Mini hatch was relaunched under the BMW ownership in 2001, and they honestly still look great over 2 decades later, especially the hot Cooper models. And given the slow evolution of Mini styling, these early models can still look brand spanking new. That is, if they've been well looked after, of course. Yeah, I see you. Now, if you think that Mini is the only car that you can afford on this list, check out the Ideal Car Strategies, where you get to learn how to buy and sell, negotiate like a pro, but it's so much more than just buying a car. It's a lifestyle. So if you want to learn more and check out a free lesson, click up here or down in the description, because the ultimate dream car for a lot of people, it's gonna be a Ferrari. And the ultimate Ferrari 2 decades ago, say it with me folks, it was the Enzo. And when you name a car after a company founder, you better be confident it is something special. And luckily the Enzo, it did not disappoint. With both the performance and the looks, it was deserving of the name. The performance box is totally ticked, thanks to that 650 horsepower V12, and the looks box is ticked as well, with a design that looks like it costs $1 million. And it does cost $1 million. And in fact, more. Like this one that just sold for 3.7 mil, and it's not even red. What? But that's besides the point. The Enzo still doesn't look outdated. Those signature round Ferrari taillights and F1 inspired nose. It doesn't even show its age when parked next to the latest hypercars. And you guys know just as well as I that when you're talking about timeless styling, you can't talk about it unless you include Porsche.
But that means they've changed it. No, but it doesn't.
Shut up. All 911s are exactly the same.
You see, some companies are constantly changing their styling, adding more wings, lines, grills, fake vents. They do all this to try to stick out, but not Porsche. They designed the first 911 in the early 60s and had been on a steady path to perfecting it for over 50 years. This evolution rather than a revolution approach means that most people won't be able to tell the difference between one model and the next, and 911s from 10 or even 15 years ago still look great today. Heck, even the 996 that I got, which is 20 years old now, still holds up well. And as long as you can dig those fried egg headlights, well, then brunch is served. And if you want to support the channel and live the ideal lifestyle, snag one of our best-selling fried egg 911 shirts up here. And while you're doing that, let's talk about the honorable mention. And it is going to be a truly legendary American supercar. Yes, it is the 2005 Ford GT. And now, I get it. I get it that the 05 Ford GT doesn't look as crazy or futuristic as the new one. And it was heavily inspired by the Le Mans winner from the 60s. But if anything, it actually looks better today than it did when it left the factory in 2005. That wide stance and super low roofline makes it look fast even when standing still. And there's also so many cool little Easter eggs in it, like the 100 in the headlights for Ford's centenary, and the doors that cut into the roof, and of course the story of beating Ferrari in the 60s. It is hard to believe this is the same company that was making the Freestar, an exploder. So, which of these cars is your favorite? Let us know in the comments below. Also, are there any other cars out there that you think still look new even though they're old? I want to know. I probably missed a ton. Also, if you enjoyed the vid, hit the subscribe button, turn on that notification bell. I'm Brad, this is Ideal. And if you enjoyed this vid, you're going to love these Idealist videos right here. They're binge watch worthy. Oh, and promise me one thing, keep living the ideal lifestyle.